Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's keeping well. We just find ourselves, a lot of us falling sick or just falling prey to the changing weather. So I just hope everyone's well. Uh, yeah. Um, I want to welcome Moni. Um, Great. All right. Hi, my name is Devina Nigam. I always say this, it's wonderful to see a few names that are known. Very rarely do we get to see faces, but that's all right. And always wonderful to see new names and new organizations attending, becoming a part of our webinar family, if I may call it so. Um, like I said, my name is Devina Nigam. I am a consultant at Atma. A little bit about us. Atma is an accelerator for education. We're an organization that largely supports education NGOs to become um, better, stronger by building capacities and creating systems and processes to solve common organizational development matters that they may face. Um, we, as an organization, started our journey in 2007, and since then have supported over 85 organizations in their journey of excellence. I think earlier on, like many of us here at Atma as well, we realized and understood the importance of shared knowledge, especially in a sector like ours where resources are already quite limited. Um, Therefore, the webinar series started in 2017, started as a space for us to share perspectives, learnings, ideas about issues that NGOs face on a daily basis. Atma Webinar is a curated platform where speakers share their practical experiences that could benefit other NGOs. Topics really range from human resource management to fundraising to finance policies to program management, communication strategies, essentially any topic that affects the sector as a whole. In today's webinar, we are going to talk about how to build a communication strategy with a keen focus on the role that digital marketing can play in it. The three learnings that we're hopeful all of us together can take away from this session are target segmentation and how to tailor our organization's narrative for each of these segments. Um, how to focus marketing efforts on the right channel. And thirdly, leveraging a self-service toolkit that's been created, that Moni is going to talk about, that's been created by her organization. Our speaker today is Moni Banerjee. She leads all things communication at Forest Street Consulting. She's a graduate of MICA, formerly known as Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, with over 2 decades of marketing and communication experience. She's worked across diverse markets and sectors in India with top advertising agencies. In the last 5 years, with expertise in digital marketing, her focus has been largely the development sector. Interestingly, we were talking about this earlier. She has three furry family members, three dogs who often make an appearance during such sessions and meetings, but I don't think we're lucky enough to see them today. Um, Welcome, Moni. Before I hand it over to Moni, I just wanted to call out a couple of things. One basic rule: we'd request everyone to keep yourselves muted during the session. Please use the chat box generously to share your comments, questions. We will take up the questions towards the end of the session. We spend about 10, 15 minutes taking the questions. Also, at the end of the session, as you know, we're recording this. We will share the recording with everybody, along with Moni's contact details. So should you have questions, further questions that we're not able to discuss today, please feel free to reach out to her. With that, handing it over to you, Moni.
Thanks so much, Davina. Just before we jump in, I do want to say that I'm going to be sharing this platform today along with my colleague Simran Dengre. She's our PPC expert, and she's actually going to, take you through the hands-on case study and how to go about building your digital strategy and online presence and things like that. But before we get to Simran's bit, what I will be talking about is more from a global, how to go about building your brand and your marketing strategy. So we will start with that. So just a brief background as to why we do what we do. We frequently heard these questions from a lot of nonprofits and other social enterprises that we were interacting with, saying, should we get a CRM? Why? Does it cost a lot of money? How do I compare the alternatives? What are my alternatives that I can use other than CRM? What is social media? How important is PR? We've started doing some very good work, but we don't know how to put ourselves out there and how to leverage our stories and what we're doing to get more people interested in our scheme of things. So what we did was we built a kit called the Comms Compass, and we will walk you through this kit along with Simran. What we have done with the help of Comms Compass is to give you a tool which will help you arrive at a actionable marketing and communication plan at the end of the day. So if you want, you can download this kit, and it's a free kit. It's freely available. We'll share the link with you, and you can fill up this kit. And once you're done filling up with this kit, at any point in time, you can reach out to us, and we're open to doing, like almost like a one-on-one consultation with you and see how to actually make this more actionable. But before we get to that, let's see how we're going to go about building this kit. So we've been communication partners for the social sector for a while. Some of the clients that we've worked very closely with is IDEA, Svaria, Bamni, eGov, Rain Matter Foundation, under whom we've also worked with some of their incubated companies, as also Sarthi. Some of the work that we've done and for which Simran has been actively involved with is, for IDEA, raising awareness for social change. For Svaria, it was more about building their online presence. And for Rain Matter, which was more about capacity building, which is pretty much similar to what we're trying to do now with Atma. This is the team. As I explained, Anuja is our founder. I look after everything communication. And as I said, Simran is our data expert. So the outline of today's webinar is essentially going to be, how do you get started? What is it that you need to do? What are the basics that will help you arrive at your marketing plan? So some of the questions that we want to be able to answer at the end of this is, what are we going to say? How are we going to say it? Who are we going to say it to? Where are we going to say it to? When and why? So let's put this into like a grid. And what we will find is that there are some which are external, which is the sector, the audience, and all of it. And some which is internal, for which you need to do a little bit of homework, which is what is the narrative that you're going to say and how you're going to say it. And essentially, how do you go about building your brand? So if I need to be more relevant in my sector, what is the gap that I'm fulfilling? Because that's the first thing that you need to figure out, as to why do you need to be in existence? So if you had to do a sector review, at the very basic, you do a Google search and you see who are the other players who are there in the market, and you also see what is it that they're saying. Okay, so some of them are, for example, if you look at Educate Girls, they're actually talking about India's first investment bond in education, which is very different from other people who are saying just donate and therefore help me, help us educate other girls. So there are various pegs that people use. There are various segments that they're targeting, and broad level analysis of what is being said in media out there, whether it's online, print, television, and so on and so forth, you will be able to get a perspective of what is it that other players are doing in the marketplace, and what is it that they are trying to peg, and what is the gap that they're trying to fulfill. So some of the gaps could be latent, some of them could be blatant and in your face. So the 4 broad gaps that you could be fulfilling would be customer service or experience-based gaps that are there. It could be convenience-based. Your product could be something which could be price-based, and therefore something, people would come to you because you're giving it to them at a more affordable kind of an option, or it could be because you're giving a better quality. Now, all of this will help you arrive at your differentiation and your positioning strategies. So now let's look at some of the case studies of who is fulfilling what kind of a gap, and I'll try to give you examples of each one of them. One example is that of Meghshala. Meghshala is a trust based out of Bangalore. Meghshala believes that the quality of education that children are getting should be irrespective of the teacher's ability, the intent, and the other facilities that are available to the child. So they're trying to normalize and give everybody the same playing field. So what Meghshala has done is built an app which gives a guided lesson plan to the teacher, so that every student who is part of this block of schools or teachers who are part of the Meghshala community will get a similar kind of an education. Now, what this does is that the gap that it is actually fulfilling is that of the customer experience, the customer over here being both the teacher as also the student, because the student's learning should not be dependent on the interest, what facilities the school has, whether the teacher is equipped to handle the number of students who are there. So these are the things which usually inhibit the education of a child. And what Meghshala is trying to do is remove that from the equation, so that every child gets a homogeneous kind of an experience. So this is a gap that they're fulfilling, which is of the customer experience. Now let's look at another partner who's like Quest Alliance. And Quest Alliance is about encouraging self-learning for life. And how do they go about doing that? They go about working with diverse partners to use technology so that people are not missing out on an opportunity because they don't have access, whether access to teachers, access to information, or what, access to other such things. So therefore, it is something which is convenience-based. So what it is trying to do is ensuring that everybody has a convenient mode through which they can access life experiences and education, which will help them further themselves in life. So this Quest works in the convenience-based gap. The third one that we're going to talk about is Navgurukul. Navgurukul runs a one-year residential course for students from underserved and diverse communities. And what it focuses on is software programming, because this is one piece of education that really makes you employable in the Indian market scenario. But sometimes what happens is, because an IT education could be expensive, whether you go to a formal IIT or you go to any of the polytechnics. Navgurukul does this as a free kind of a course for these students, but with the assumption that once you do get a job, you will pay back in whatever way that you can feel and are able to do. And what it does is also, if they feel that you haven't reached the stage where you can actually participate and take part in the software programming thing, they've taken like a little backward integration and take a step backwards, where they've introduced the Meraki program, where the Meraki program along with Cisco works with educating the same students and giving them a basics in programming so that they can work in a and then move forward and learn the software programming certification. So this is something which is price-based. What they have done is that they've taken the price out of the equation so that it's no longer a matter of affordability for students. They can, if they have the ability and they have the intention, this is something that they can take advantage of. The last one that we're going to discuss about over here is a company called Bais Batte Saath, or Pi. Pi cards as the product, as they call themselves. This is based on the quality. So usually teachers, when they're teaching, sometimes it becomes difficult for them to keep track of whether students are understanding what is being taught to them, or what is the level of participation from students. Are they attending? Are they being attentive and things like that? So what PyCards does is, it's with the help of a small device, it actually tracks and gives back continuous feedback in the classroom to the teacher so that the teacher is able to deliver a proper classroom experience to the students without actually having to interrupt the teaching process to try and get this kind of feedback. So this is something which is, again, quality based. So now we've seen examples of the different kind of gaps that can exist in the marketplace, and the examples that some of the organizations who are working on each of these kind of gaps. So we've done sector landscape. We've looked at how you can go about looking at who is doing what and saying what. And we've also now let's look at the audience segments and who is the target audience. And the target audience can differ from the purpose of what you're looking at them for, right? So who are they, where are they, and what are the various worries, joys, and pain points? So there are typically, at a very broad level, 4 ways that you can segment a market and look at the target segments. So they could be demographic, which is what is the age, where do they stay? Psychographic is how do they think? Behavioral is how do they consume a certain product or service? And geographic is literally what is the environment that they live in. So the country, the climate, do they live in large towns, small towns? All of those would be your geographic audience segmentation. Demographic, like I mentioned, could be your gender, could be your age, income, education, and so on and so forth. Psychographic would be things like your lifestyle, your opinions, your values. And behavioral is your purchase behavior. What are the benefits that you're looking for? Now, how do you go about segmenting this? There are various tools which are shared in this presentation, which you all can always go back to later. So let's look at the various target segments that, for example, Meghshala could be looking at. So the Meghshala is looking at educational boards, is looking at school administration, who are different from educational boards because that could be part of the government, looking at teachers, and also looking at students. Now, what each of them, while geographically they could all be in, some of them could be in a particular, similar kind of a scenario. So teachers and students possibly would be from the same town or, place that could be, but the education board could very well be the state capital, which need not be where the teachers and students are. But so therefore, geographically, they would be different. If you look at it from a demographic perspective, age-wise, they are different because a teacher is very different from that of a student, and so on and so forth. Similarly, what is it that they're looking for from the app? So the school administration would be looking at saying, how do we make life simpler? The teachers would be, how will it make me deliver a proper lesson plan? So what they're looking for from the app itself is very different. So then again, that's where your psychographic and your behavioral expectations come in from, right? So let's walk through a segment persona example. So for a lot of NGOs, the most important person is a CSR head because that's where most of the funding comes from. If we try to do a map of what a CSR head typically is, let's say aged about 40, has a master's degree in either an MBA or an MA or an MS in some form, is available across various modes on social networks. So has Facebook, is on Instagram, is on Twitter, has a LinkedIn profile, could possibly be on Pinterest as well and things like that. But what's the preferred method of communication that this person is looking for when he wants to interact with somebody uh, who's with whom he wants to work on a business or a work kind of a thing? So it could essentially be email or face-to-face, because what he's looking for is very different from each of the various social networks that we talk about. Now, some of the tools that they do need at their workplace is could be cloud-based storage and filing, could be employee scheduling software and things like that. And the critical job that they have to fulfill is they have to find the right NGOs and ensure that they have a timely dispersal of funds, and then getting the impact reports back to the organization and therefore the board, and ensuring that the CSR goals are met. So how do you, if this is the persona that you're going to be talking to, and the preferred method is email or face-to-face, but sometimes it's very difficult to get through to people like this on email. So what are the various other channels that we open to? But some of these channels also have their own inherent nature. So Facebook is not something that you would generally go to looking for serious content as such, but LinkedIn is. So could you reach out to them on LinkedIn, right? You could look at building your community on Instagram or even on Twitter for that matter, because there is some amount of serious content which sometimes does get shared on these kind of channels. So therefore, this is one way of looking at various media options that you could look at. And here I'm concentrating more on the social networks, essentially because those are the low-hanging fruits. They are the easier ones to utilize. I will talk about the other media channels that are open, for any organization a little later on. Now let's look at a different target person. Let's look at the teacher who's essentially in the age group of say 25 to 34, has at least a bachelor's degree or a B.Ed. And the tools that they need are essentially textbooks and classroom teaching aids. Again, active on Facebook, may not be there on Instagram, could be there on LinkedIn or on Twitter. But again, what they're looking for would be the means of communication would be again in-person, email, or could be WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp for a teacher community could be a very active method in which that you reach out to them. But it's not a normal social network that you think about when you think of, what are the media options that are available to me, right? So we've looked at the sector landscape. We've looked at what kind of gap that could exist. What is it that, makes you relevant for your target audience? Now, and we've also looked at how do you go about looking at various target audience segments. Now, let's look at a little introspection and say, who are you as a brand? And let's look at articulating your brand identity. So what you can talk about is what the brand is and what the brand is not. And we'll go through a brand archetype kind of an example where this is one thing that will help you arrive at a global perspective of what your brand can stand from. From there, you will have to bring it down to what your brand essence is, what your brand stands for, what your brand voice is, and so on and so forth. So this is something which is easily available on the net, and the link is mentioned on the things. So there are typically 12 brand archetypes that are available on a broad scale. Some of them, which are common in the social sector, is that of a caregiver, which fits many organizations given the kind of work that is being given. And examples of caregiver could be, you could be a caregiver as a guardian, you could be a caregiver in the Samaritan kind of a thing, you could be a caregiver in the healer perspective, or caregiver from an angel perspective. So some of the examples that would come to mind would be, say, Mother Teresa or UNICEF or Double Worldwide Fund. And in the more commercial terms, Johnson & Johnson, which is all in the region of who a caregiver brand could be. Another example is that of a hero who wants to go out and help you arrive at and achieve your goals. Nelson Mandela, the Red Cross, of course, Marvel and Nike, who are all hero brands and, encourage you to just go and achieve your dreams. The third example that could be relevant could be that of a sage. A sage is someone who imparts information. So much like Yoda, you could be the TED of the industry, or somebody like a Mayo Clinic, where a lot of work happens in the development of medicine and other such areas. Yeah. Or we come to one which is called the magician, where they just have to wave a wand and make things happen for you. Walt Disney, and for a lot of NGOs, for example, the BMGF Foundation. Yeah. So these are some of the examples of the brand archetype that you can come for. This is a free tool which is available. You can look at it. There are questions which are there. You can answer those questions and arrive at what your brand persona is. What we have is, now I'm showing you, is part of the kit that we talked about right at the beginning, which is the Comes Compass kit. And the fact that you can download the kit, and while you're trying to answer these questions, you will have to do some of the activities that we've been talking about all this while. So you will have to do your brand archetype, and then therefore arrive at what are the commonly used words that you would use to describe your organization and you will not use to describe your organization. If your organization were a personality, who would that be? So we looked at some of the examples of, say, Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa, who are, one is a hero, one is a caregiver kind of a thing. So these are some of the questions that you would arrive and answer to arriving at your brand personality. Now, the most important thing at while you're building a brand is that of a consistency. And what they do say is that you have to create a consistent brand, however and wherever, whatever touches your brand is online and offline, because this is something which is very blurred. And what are the essentials of your brand? Okay. At the very heart of your brand, of course, is your logo. So tell people how, if they're using a logo, how they're going to use your logos. So your logo should ideally have a color and black and white version. It should have a size and ratio. When you're talking about it, how will you use your logo? If you're doing a partnership with somebody else, how will they use your logo? On different backgrounds, how will your logo stand out? What is the space that you need around your logo for the logo to stand out? And it's just important to show people how you want your logo to be showcased, as to show them also how you don't want your logo to be used, right? Second, essentials of building your brand persona also is, of course, identifying a font. A font is what will, after some time, will start getting associated with you as a brand also. Now, how are you going to use the font in print, online, and outdoor, as heading, as the rest of the copy in any leaflet or flyer that you're doing, that kind of a thing. The third, of course, is your color palette. What are the colors that are associated with your brand? Are there any primary colors? If you look at the example for Forestry Consulting right now, you will see that the colors that we essentially use are orange and black and shades of gray. That's our color palette for us. We use orange as an accentuating color, and not, so therefore our slides are not completely orange, but there are parts of it which wherever we want to highlight something, we use orange as a highlighting color. So that's the accentuating color, but our palette is in that range. Then there is the image guideline of what are the kind of images that you will be associated with and what you won't be associated with. Do you want to show happy, smiling faces all the time? Or do you want to show the need that is there in the marketplace? So that will help you define what your image guidelines are going to be. Similarly, your voice and vocabulary. What is it that you want to, what is the story that you want to tell, and what is the emotion that you want to touch upon? So are you going to talk to the people as peers and say, let's do this together? Are you going to approach people and say, you help me do this better? Or you could be talking to your community that you're interacting with and say, I will help you do this better. So your voice and your vocabulary will change depending upon the target audience that you're talking to, right? So when I'm talking about brand consistency, these are some of the examples of, for example, if you take Coke across media, what they have done. And if some of this is looking boring, that means you're doing a good job, because your brand has to look the same irrespective of what is it that you're using and where you're using. And if you have an opportunity of putting your brand out there, please do so. Yeah, put it on letterheads, put it on pens, put it on mugs, put it when Devina sends out an invite for a webinar, I tell her, please put Forestry logo on it. Yeah. So every available opportunity, please do put your brand out, because that will help you build your connection with your target audience as well. And this is an example of Cisco, where Cisco is talking about how their logo is their identity, and also the font and how to go about using the font. So these are some of the examples of how people use brands and try to build brand consistency out there. Now we will come to one of the most critical and non-scientific tool that you need to really build on and work upon is the narrative. What is the story? How are you going to connect with your target audience? What is the story that you're going to tell? And what this has to be the heart of your communication plan. So let's look at some of the emotional triggers that you could talk about. And let's look at movies, because that's something I think all of us watch at some point in time. You look at Mr. India, the emotion that you get is very different from when you see an image of Gandhiji on Dandi March or your cricket team winning a trophy. So the emotions that come to you when you see each of these images is very, very different. So you need to figure, what is the emotional trigger that I want to work with? Do I want to work with patriotism? So therefore, I'm going to use things which are associated with the country. It could be the colors of the Indian flag. It could be figures that we associated with India. It could be people who are achievers in India and use them as an emotional hook to connect with my target audience. It could be moments of celebration because I want to project an upbeat kind of an emotion. So that's the emotional trigger that I want to talk to. Or I could be talking about something which is make believe and let's make dreams come true kind of a thing. So there you could, Mr. India is an example of that, right? So some of the examples from the social sector, if you look at climate trends, the main protagonist for them are the citizens, because it's expecting the citizens to be evangelists and go out and do something. And the context is that of the climate. The messaging that is wanting to be propagated to the protagonists and the citizens is the awareness of the issue that climate change is critical. You need to be aware of what is happening in your environment, and you need to do your bit to ensure that climate change does not escalate as rapidly as it is doing currently. Similarly, if you look at Give India, it is again looking at the same people, right? It is again citizens, but what they're looking at the citizens is in a very different manner. There, it is not so much activism as in, can you be a retail donor? Can you help somebody achieve their dream? Can you ensure that some of the good work which is being done on the ground can be done with your help? So the narrative that you're going to give to the same person from a Give India perspective is very different from the perspective that you give when you're talking to them from, say, a climate trends kind of a thing. And the context of Give India is that sometimes it's very difficult to connect the nonprofits and the retail donors. And this is a one-stop shop essentially for an India-centric charity. So that is one perspective. The third example that we're talking about is Cry, where the protagonist here again is the child. And we're talking about protecting the child and protecting the child from a health perspective, from an education perspective, from a nutrition perspective. So ensuring that the message that we want to give out is that we want to provide a happy childhood to every child in India. Come and be part of the movement. So the narrative that each of these are giving is very different, even though you could be talking to the same person, right? So to take the Cry narrative a little bit more in detail, the context and the challenges that since we are talking about protection of the education, health, nutrition, and so on and so forth, we also want people to participate. And the message that we're trying to ensure is that let's ensure that every child in India gets a happy childhood. So we've looked at the external world, which is who all are there, who else is working, who all can you partner with, who all are working in the same space, and therefore what is it that you're going to be doing differently. Then you've looked at target audiences and saying, who all do I need to talk to? Do I need to talk to donors? Do I need to talk to implementers at the grassroots? Do I need to talk to government agencies who will help me arrive at things? And to each of these target audience, what is the narrative that I'm going to be talking about, right? What is the story that I'm going to be telling you? Why me? Why am I better? How do I make this happen? And in all of this, how do I stand out as a brand? What is the message that I as a brand, what is it that I want others to feel when they see me as a brand? Right? So now Um, Connecting the dots, like I said, there are various media channels which are open to you. At the broad level, there is your multimedia, which is TV, radio, out of home, print advertising, and direct. But all of this require deep pockets because mass media requires a whole lot of outflow of funds. So essentially, what we tend to concentrate more on, especially for nonprofits and for NGOs, is more online presence, because that is something which we found is harder working. We really know who we are talking to, so we're not spraying our bullets, and therefore, you're missing out. You don't know who you're targeting, and a lot of money could be wasted. Here, you're actually talking to the person that you need to talk, right? So direct mail through email, you could use SMS through your mobile. There is telemarketing, there's PR, public relations. There is search options that you could use on Google and etc. You have your website, which is what could be one of your key tools. You have social shares, videos, blogs, and so on and so forth. I will now hand you over to Simran, who will actually take you through a case study and tell you how is it that you will go about uh, using some of these tools that we've talked about and arrive at a social media plan. Simran, over to you.
Hi, my name is Simran. I work with Forest Street Consulting as a PPC paid marketing specialist. Moni has already given me quite a brief to all of you. And just to add to that, I have experience working with numerous startups and SMEs in the FMCG and development sector for demand generation. And I'm a data driven marketeer by passion and training. And of course, before diverting you too much from today's topic, let's just dive back in. Moni, I want to start with the toolkit first. So if you could please share the link to the toolkit with everyone. There's a form that you all can fill out and download this free toolkit. I will give you all a few minutes to do so, and then we can start off. Moni has shared the link to the toolkit. So you guys can go and fill in the form that the link has, and download the toolkit from there. I hope everyone would have downloaded the toolkit by now. So I'll start off with the toolkit and what is it about, and the different segments that Moni covered, the 4 quadrants, and how you can practically use it using this toolkit. This has all the exercises which will cover the 4 quadrant that Moni took you through. So, as an organization, you understand how critical it is to get the word out there. And there are so many digital media tools and social media channels available out there that it becomes overwhelming to find a clear strategy. That's why we have built this toolkit called Comms Compass for organization leaders like you. This will help you build a solid comms foundation and a strategy on key attributes that will help you get a clarity on key attribute areas to help your organization set apart. Since Moni did a good job of introducing our brand, and that's why I won't get into it again. Um, but coming back to introducing to Comms Compass to you all, Comms Compass will help you navigate through the world of digital communications. We have organized the tools and resources in the following section based on the desired outcomes for a social purpose organization. The toolkit is specially designed for nonprofits and social enterprises, and it has 5 sections, as you can see here, to build a digital communication plan, starting from setting a strong foundation to understanding how to reach new potential customers, building a successful fundraising campaign, engaging with stakeholders, and increasing repeat donations. Lastly, building advocates who will support your campaign and amplify your message. We have covered only the first part of the toolkit, which is building up a strong foundation to tell your brand story. Moni has already walked you through the foundation part of this toolkit, but to make it more actionable for your organization, you need to fill out the exercises given below in each of these sections. I don't expect you to do this right away, as this requires time and brainstorming between your team. But to help you get started, uh, we have we have used a case study to make these exercises more practical uh, uh, for you, and thus I'll walk you through this case study here. I hope the screen is well visible to everyone.
You want to
uh,
put it in slideshow mode?
yeah, okay. Is it better?
It's not in the slideshow mode. I think when you clicked earlier, it was in the slideshow mode. Just fine.
Okay. Siksha Sathi is an organization that helps and supports children from low income families in urban areas. And Siksha Sathi, to give you a little context why it was built, it saw a discrepancy in urban areas where high income children's were outperformed by low income children's, and almost 75% children in India today cannot do basic language and mathematical problems, and thus Siksha Sathi had this mission that no child should be left behind. Just to build this program up, they had done a one-on-one coaching for parents at home, giving them after school education to help and support and empower parents so that they give their child a much more quality time and build a more larger community with skills, with all of these basic skills like of education, which is mathematical issues or any language issues or any barriers which are holding them back uh, to uplift their confidence. And thus, they have also provided personalized resources, which involves assigning worksheets, meeting parents in personally to guide them with these personalized resources to help meet the kids' needs at school level. Siksha Sathi is based out of Delhi. They have footprints in Delhi, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttarakhand. They have worked with government at Madhya Pradesh. They have spent quite some awareness activities and different stages of adoption cycle at location that they are based out of, which is Delhi. In past, they have done a lot of marketing activities as well, as I said. Their basic requirement right now was that they have done uh, all of these marketing activities and in bits and pieces then and now, but then they haven't ever gotten back and stopped at some point where they have thought about this their communication strategy at one go. And that's what we see with most of the organization these days. They directly jump to these online platforms and think that these are the different channels that they want to go after, and they just run after those channels without knowing that what is the exact plan, or what are the different goals that they are achieving from this year from these channels. Or they directly jump to conclusion that they want to post 3 times a week, or this is the post that they should go after, without aligning their metrics and different things, how they can measure these posts back to their goals that they want to set for the yearly goals that they want to set for the organization. So right now what I'll do is I'll take you through the kit using this case study, how we have filled uh, this kit using the case study of Siksha Sathi. Okay, so these exercises will help you with defining who you are in terms of understanding your organization goals. Uh, uh, like you can see here, that Siksha Sathi has laid down their top 3 goals for this year, which is increasing retail fundraising in target location, that is Delhi, increasing awareness in parents about children's education, then building engagement within foundations and CSRs that they have listed, to understanding what your organization stands for, what are some of the popular terms used to characterize the organization, what terms will you not use to describe your organization, and of course, as Moni has already walked you through the brand archetypes, using that brand archetype exercise, defining your organization's personalities. So these the 2 exercises will help you define who you are. Then I'll move to the next section, which is putting lens to your sector landscape through listing relevant entities that are worth partnering with. So you can list down the different entities here, their strength points, and what you can learn from them, and uh, define the exact entities that you want to go after. Also, then doing a comparison with your alternatives, uh, knowing their strengths and weaknesses, and how would your organization make someone extend their support. And moving on to the next section, before you begin connecting with your target audience, you need to learn about them. You need to learn who your target audience is really, right? So these exercises would help you list down what are the current target segments that you want to target. What is which segment is the one which would be easier for you to convert first, then which is the segment that has the most potential impact, and what is the success rate that you can see from that segment. And this also, in the second stage, you can understand the segment's pain points, like what does your target segment care about, or can your organization work help them achieve their goals, what online or offline communication channels do they prefer, who influences their opinions and decisions. You can once you know who your audience is, you can start building a story using some of these key ingredients, which is you can use this table uh, to fill out the narrative that you want to build for your target segment. Just like Moni walked you through the narrative of Cry and Educate Girls, how they use the protagonist and draw a story that could connect to the segment. We have used a segment of Siksha Sathi here, which is the parents and children. Lastly, identifying where to put your marketing efforts and eventually building a more tactical marketing plan for your organization. Since we feel that this is the biggest gap that we see today, that people are ready to go out all on marketing before even knowing where to begin. Uh, where is their audience and which stage of communication should they put efforts on? Thus, it's important to first figure out where is the biggest gap uh, in your buyer's journey, or what we call as adoption cycle. Uh, is it awareness that not enough people know about your brand, or is it lead generation, that is the lack of significant donor database, or you have difficulties getting repeat donations, or even it can be that you have difficulty obtaining any donations. So the adoption cycle here has mapped to a variety of channels. You can see a 360-degree campaign that you hear everywhere, right? These days, that I want to run like a 360-degree campaign. But what does this 360 campaign entail? So this 360-degree campaign is used when all of these channels are covered, all of these you are well settled with all of these stages of the adoption cycle, right? Then you call it a 360-degree marketing campaign, where you can uh, connect to your uh, audience from all across the channels, and you can get down your audience to the all funnel stages of your adoption cycle. But if you are not well equipped with any of these any one also of these stages, then you want to go back and target and put your most efforts on those particular stages of the adoption cycle. So therefore, once you're all set with the basics, you can definitely go ahead and jot down the different segments for your organization. These segments can be based out of demographics and psychographics that will help you differentiate the audiences from one another. It can be location, age, gender, or even behavior and the types of organization. Once you have identified your segment, you can now invest on where would you want to put your most efforts in, or what stage of adoption cycle do you want to put your efforts on. As you can see here on this particular table, Siksha Sathi has divided the segments into four groups, which is retail donors, low income group parents, foundations, and CSRs. They defined where they want to put the most efforts on for each segment. Like in case of retail donations, they have done a fair bit of job at each stages of adoption cycle, but has issues at the conversion level, and thus want to put their most efforts on for retail donation at the conversion level. Now that you are all set with the brand definition, target segments, pain points of your target segments, the channels, the preferred channels for the mode of communication, and the biggest gap that you see on your adoption cycle, now it's time to identify the right channels and tactics for your stage of adoption cycle. So now you can see that when I said at the very starting that people jump directly to choosing the channels and the frequency they want to post or the tactics they want to go after, they don't really go back and set their organization goals and their target segments, where their target segment is lacking, and accordingly choose the channels and tactics for it. So this comes at the very later stage of the uh, adoption cycle. So this table here, which we have listed down for you to get down to design a tactical plan for your segment. It covers all the stages of adoption cycle that you can see here. It has awareness, lead generation, engagement, conversion, um, all the different channels that are mapped to these stages, and the different tactics that are mapped to the stages. and the metrics that you can measure uh, from these stages of adoption cycle. Now that you're through with this exercise and you have a more tactical plan for your segment, to help you understand this better, we have mapped channels and tactics from the previous table to Shiksha Sathi's target segment. So if you can see here, as I said earlier, that Shiksha Sathi has issues uh, on retail donation. They had issues at the conversion level with foundations. They had issue with repeat donations, and at the their main target audience, which is to make awareness on parents and children, they had still issue facing with the awareness stage. So now what you can do on your tactical plan is you can map these segments down and connect it back to this table of marketing channels and tactics. Like for example, in case of retail donors, they have issues at conversion level. So you can choose the conversion level channels and map it to your table and pick the tactics that you can go after for these particular channels. And once you have done that, we have you can see we have done it for retail donors, low income group parents, foundations, and CSRs. You have a more tactical plan to go after for your marketing goals. We will share this sample file also with you across the email to help you fill the same for your brand. As a resource, we also provide a social media tactics and content resource, which will help you in making a sound marketing plan. So, Moni, if you could share that spreadsheet with everyone.
Yeah, I've just done that on the chat.
Okay, thanks. So the spreadsheet consists of three things, which is the channel guide, the three types of social content, and 100 content prompts, which is like a content guide that you can say. So the channel guide with different types of social media channel aligned with the type of content that you can go after in the various channels, and what would a success look like when you would post such kind of a content on such so and so platforms. So you can go through this in your own time. And secondly, about the types of social content that you can go after, there are three types of social contents primarily. One is owned content. um, Owned content meaning it's a brand content that you can own. It can be your case studies, your testimonials, blogs, etc. Earned content can be anything that derives from partnerships, which can be reviews, testimonials, anything that you can share or tag or mentions any account on any social media channels that you are using. Then paid content is, of course, everyone knows that it's the promotional content, which is the boosted posts, the advertising, the paid influencer affiliation marketing. Lastly, I'll cover the content guide that can give you ideas of creating various contents tying to your marketing goal. So over here you can see different goals, different, sorry, one second, different prompts like what is the founding story of your brand, who can what is the content category, what is the goal with this content type, what is the KPI that you can go after. So this is a very detailed kind of a content guide that can help you give a much more broader ideas of content that you can go after. So that's where it helped Siksha Sathi to derive to different tactics for their preferred channels. Um, I would like to go back to the four quadrant that Moni had talked about. I'm sure this toolkit would have brought more actionable insights to Moni's theory of setting a strong foundation using key attributes, uh, doing a sector landscape, understanding target audiences, and building a strong narrative to your story. Um, And I'm sure for that this would have helped you to connect the dots with the uh, foundation story that Moni walked you through. I'm sure that the first glance of it, the session would have felt more intimidating. But slowly, once you will start building your brand story using these exercises, it would help you design a strong communication strategy for your organization. Additionally, we also provide one-on-one sessions where we assist you in using the toolkit. If you want such kind of services, please contact us at comscompassforestryconsulting.com, and we would be pleased to assist you. Um, and lastly, I would want to go back to the questions at the chat window, and Moni and I are open for it.
Thank you so much. This was very interesting. I know we're a bit over the set time limit, but for those of you who stayed back, thank you so much. Just wanted to invite questions. I know there are a couple in the chat box. I wanted to ask anyone else if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask the questions.
So while the new questions are coming up, shall we start with the ones that are
With
already
I,
there?
yes.
Yeah.
Just looking for, I think Aishwarya had a question.
Yeah. Who should be involved in the comms compass exercise? So this actually should be anybody who is defining the business goals of the organization to the person who's executing. So I'm not saying the entire organization needs to be part of it, but if you see some of the stages as the kit was explained to you by Simran, there are things like your business goals that you need to be sure about. So for that, you will need for the the people who are defining your business strategy, your annual goals, and all of them to be involved as well. Then there are sections where and also things like defining a target audience. So as the example given by Simran, if you're looking at enhancing your um, retail donors, okay, that is something which your fundraising team would be involved with. It would also be your business head, because if that's one of your business goals, that needs to feed back into your comms compass. So your marketing and communication strategy has to flow from your business strategy and your business goals for the year. So anyone who's taking a call on that should ideally also be inputting into the comms compass exercise as well, because unless it is owned by everybody who's a key decision maker in the organization, you will not be able to make it a success.
Mani, just adding to that, how long is this? Sorry if I missed that. How long will the process? How long is usually the process? As far
Fill
as
the kit. To fill the kit actually depends on how much homework you've already done. So if you're going to be starting from saying, okay, what is our business goals and things like that, then it could take you days. Yeah, because or you could like literally go into a huddle for a couple of days with all team members and say we're going to do it in this next 48 hours kind of a thing. But if you have some of those larger pieces filled in, then arriving at the rest of it is fairly simple. It depends on how much of dialogue that you'll engage with and who all y'all bring in. Sometimes it helps to bring in an outside perspective as well, and not just be the the core team who's working on it, because then identifying the target audience, what is the peg, or bringing an expert when you want to decide what your narrative is going to be, or uh, like I said, or if you're going even further back and saying I first need to define who my brand is, that exercise itself can take you 3 months, right? But if you've got all those pieces done, then the comms compass kit should at best take you a couple of days in which to kind of fill it in. But you really need to have done your homework prior to that.
are there any other questions that come to your minds right now? I'm sure there was a lot of information to take in, and perhaps everyone's thinking about the organizations. Where do the organizations sort of stand, right? But are there any questions? You all want to unmute yourselves and go ahead and ask the question?
If I may, I wanted to come in with another question. So for doing the sector landscape exercise or even building out the profiles of the buyer personas, there would have to be some amount of research involved. How much time and how much effort do you suggest that an organization on an average invest in getting those pieces right?
So the research that you will need to do is so like I said, it depends on what stage you are as an organization. When you're starting off, like if you're literally like a startup, you would need almost 3 to 6 months of research to actually arrive at all of this, because you will need to do some amount of field work and go and meet the actual the teams who are implementing for you, or could be possibly your beneficiaries and things like that. But the assumption is that for a lot of us, we would have had uh, defined our the reason for our existence, right? Who is it that we're going to talk to? So what you would need to do is maybe fine tune that to a greater extent. So that could, that kind of research you can do by talking to 5, 10, 15 people kind of a thing, which, it can be done in a week's time if you really put your mind to it, kind of a thing, and come back to it. But I'm assuming that the more deeper research has gone in before the organization has come into existence, because otherwise, if after you started working and then you're still questioning who your main target audience is, all of that could take a long while. But within that, if, for example, your business goal for this year, for example, is I need to connect to more foundations and CSR funders, then maybe it'll take you a couple of weeks, in which case you reach out to 5 or 7 or 10 such, either CSR heads or other such foundation people who are working for them, and get a feel for what is it that, who they are, what their pain points are, what they feel like, and things like that.
Great. Thank you so much. I think it is 4:10, so perhaps we could wrap up the session. But as you can see the comments, both Moni and Simran, the session's been very, very interesting. Like I said before, I think all of us are going to take a look at all the wonderful links that you all have shared, think about all the information that you shared, and just make sense of it for our own organizations and the roles that we all can play. Um, Thank you, everybody, for joining the session. We will be sharing the recording with all of you, and the contact details of our speakers. So please feel free to reach out to them should you have any questions. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Devina, for organizing this. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
हेलो, कैसे हो? Hi, Devina. I can't hear you.